Thank you for joining us today, ladies and gentlemen. Today we got a fun one. The story of Burrows Cave is a story that I've been following since the mid to late 1990s when I had first heard about this, first read about it. And at first glance, most people will automatically dismiss this as fantasy, like I did. But when you start looking into other diffusionist or the idea of pre-Columbian contact with the old world, you realize that there might be something there. Now, to be fair to the listener, I was a skeptic before the interview, and I am still a skeptic after this interview. This story overall, it's kind of hard to follow because it goes in so many different directions, and there's parts of it that are just crazy. If you're unfamiliar with the story of Burrows Caves, I would suggest you look it up. There's many videos on YouTube. Some think it's real, some think it's not real. That's up to the listener to decide on your own. But it is certainly fascinating. It's a controversial story, and Harry Hubbard, our guest today, he's a bit of a controversial figure, but he is very integral into this whole story, the whole legend, if you will. If you go online, you can find many negative things that have been said about Harry, and I can only tell you my experience with Mr. Hubbard. Carter and I went down to interview him. I have since been back to talk to him, and he was very welcoming. He's very engaging. He's funny. He's obviously a very intelligent man, and he is extremely well-read. That I know. So today, go for the ride. Try to follow this and do your own research on Burrows Cave. And as always, thank you very much for tuning in, and God bless. Harry, first off, thank you very much for having us come down here. I appreciate you agreeing to do this podcast with us, and thank you.
Well, it just took too much out of me, man. I tell you, it just
Well, for the record, this is the first time we've ever went on location. We don't do that, but I am so interested in this Burrows Cave, just the whole history from the beginning to your involvement in it, and I'm just fascinated by the story. And
I didn't want to pack up all
this. I know.
So
I completely understand.
Yeah.
And
you had to see it to believe it. So,
well, and that's true. These artifacts this whole, your library, everything's very impressive. And one thing that Carter and I on the way down, we were commenting was the topography change. Because I live along the Kaskaskia River. I'm about 1.5 miles from the river.
Mm-hmm.
And we start to leave that central Illinois flat and then get into the hills. But down here is when you're really starting to get into the hills. And my first thought is, this has got to be great turkey hunting country.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, this is incredible.
I've got them everywhere.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All over.
So before we start this, I want to, for the listener, I want to give just a brief synopsis of the story. You can correct after I've done reading it. You can correct, and then we'll get into your involvement. But from what I've gathered, this is what I've put together, and then I'll let you correct me. In 1982, a man named Russell Burrows, while out searching the woods for artifacts in southern Illinois, fell into a mysterious pit. According to Burrows, the pit opened up into a room that had several long corridors that led into other rooms. In this network of caverns, he discovered gold artifacts, mummified human remains, bronze weapons, statues, scrolls, burial urns, and stone tablets. Many of the artifacts contained writing and hieroglyphs that are a mix of Roman, Greek, African, Egyptian, Phoenician, Hebrew, and Native American. Over the next several years and decades, he began removing the artifacts and selling them to collectors. According to Swiss author Luc Bergen, Burrows deposited a total of $15 million into Swiss bank accounts. During this time, Burrows remained secretive about the location of the cave, often citing several different areas to confuse would-be treasure hunters. In 1991, Burrows published a book titled The Mystery Cave of Many Faces about his find and the artifacts that he discovered. In 1994, our guest today, Harry Hubbard, began working with Burrows and his artifacts. After several years, Hubbard and Burrows parted ways, and Mr. Hubbard conducted his own excavations of the cave and discovered numerous artifacts and tablets himself. It was during this time that Harry Hubbard and his partner, Paul Shafranca, deciphered many of the writings on the artifacts and came to the astonishing conclusion that the caves were the burial tombs of Alexander Helios and Queen Cleopatra and the Ptolemaic Dynasty. Now, how is that? How far off the truth is that?
Burrows was not out looking for old homesteads.
Okay.
He got there correlating or crisscrossing two treasure books. And he was escorted down there, which I cover in my Gallery 12 Part 2 video. It's his first introduction to the local town, the local people, who Lois Allen, who's no longer with us, escorted him down to the ravine and showed him, because the two treasure books crisscrossed. One came in from Helm and the other one came in from Kell. So he didn't do that. Now, anything in Luke Bergen, okay, I don't know if you have the book.
I do not.
Okay, I gave him all the pictures. I gave him all the information. He had nothing. Okay, everything in his book that he gets right or wrong is because he misinterpreted. It was like 30 or 3 or 4 million, and I gave him the numbers of the bank account. Him being in Switzerland, I say maybe you can find out what the bank was. And the guy was not real bright, okay? What he did was he published the stuff, and he published some other stuff that I did not give him permission to do. I just wanted him to do some investigative work, and he didn't. He's lazy. Here's a newspaper reporter, lazy. Now, so just to clarify on that. Now, another issue is Alexander Helios is not here. Okay, it's Alexander the Great, not Alexander Helios. Alexander Helios is Cleopatra and Mark Antony's missing son from history. He just vanishes after age 10. And now AI and Grok or Chat GPT, when you Google Alexander Helios, it says that he died in Rome at the age of 15, and then they show you a guy that's like in his early 30s. You know, it's just a feeble attempt. Nobody has found Alexander Helios, and to this day, no one has found Alexander the Great or Cleopatra or any of the Ptolemies, and they never will, because we got so many stones here that's got their names on them with their likenesses, and even different languages, Egyptian, Punic mixed with Greek. You can have a Greek word spelled with Punic characters. You can have a Greek god spelled in Latin characters or Egyptian characters, and it's just all over the place. And so just to clarify on some of that, and
the Ptolemaic, before we get into the some of these artifacts, the Ptolemaic Dynasty they were Greeks. Basically, right.
Macedonian Greeks, yeah.
that were pharaohs for
300
years.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically you had Greeks that were running Egypt at the time.
Correct.
Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
And some of these people were lost to history.
Mm-hmm.
And you believe that these artifacts that have come out of these cave networks, not too far from where we're sitting here, after you and Paul Shafranca deciphered these things, that the Ptolemaic Dynasty somehow ended up here.
Well, it was obvious that Alexander Helios brought them. And people said, do you think that Alexander the Great is there? No, we don't. Do you believe Alexander the Great is buried there? No, it's something that we know. For the past over 30 years, we have been preaching it as loud as we could, and no one the world over. But since then, there have been 19 pseudo discoveries of Alexander the Great or Cleopatra, and they happen all the time. The first one happened just a few months after we made the declaration, and this archaeologist that we were working with goes, just watch the news in February, and it's when it came out that this woman, a Greek woman, had Alexander the Great buried inside and had no tablets that had his name on them. Had no proof of anything. They just make it up as they go. And so it was, and there'll probably be more pseudo sites come out, with this and that. But they never will, because we've got way too much. Look at all this stuff here. Did Burrows just dream this stuff up? And when you see on the pieces here, okay, triumvir, Marcus Antonius triumvir, Alexander Helios, the insignia. This is the insignia. This is his motif, and it's basically two Greek characters read Hele. Okay, Hele is the motif, the nickname, or the shortened name for Alexander Helios.
And he was a twin, correct?
Yes. His sister was Selene the Moon.
He was named after the sun. She was the moon.
You're right.
Is that right? Okay.
Mm-hmm. At the time that there was a lot of unrest in Rome, we don't know what happened to the 10th Legion. And even though the Roman Empire was expanding, their census was kind of going down. We believe that this is the theory. Now we know that the interment is over here, about 4.5 miles. But we believe that the entire 10th Legion came over here, or maybe even as many as 50,000 people came over here at that time. And any of the mound builders along the river systems, which there are just thousands and thousands of.
You're talking about like Cahokia Mounds?
Yeah, all of them.
Monk Mound.
All over. Any of the mounds along the river of Mississippi, Ohio, Scioto, White River, all of them across Ohio, Tennessee, et cetera, that used the circle cross and worshiped the sun are directly, indirectly related to what happened here 2,000 years ago.
How did you get involved in this?
When
did you meet Russell?
Over the phone in 1993.
Okay.
And then in person, August of 94.
Okay.
I fell into it. I had joined David Hatcher Childress's Explorers Club, and I had ordered some books from him, Lost Cities of North America, and maybe even the one next to it there. What is that? Ancient American Inscriptions. And there were 4 or 5 guys pitched in on that. And it's got a lot about Burrows and Burrows Cave in it. And those are essential, putting the history together along with the Mr. Cave book. And I had contacted David Hatch. This is back before he was rich and famous and on TV all the time. And why he hasn't pursued Burrows Cave, I don't know. Maybe he's afraid to. Maybe, who knows? But I called him up and I spoke to him and I said, man, I see this Burrows Cave and I see other people mentioning it. And he had told me that he saw the artifacts and he believed that they were real. He said, they look real to me. And so I ordered the Mystery Cave Many Faces book and had read it. And then I met Paul shortly thereafter. And then Paul and I had done in winter of 94, we had done our Lazeria map collection. I went through my map collection, which became a cult classic. Our first 2 videos are just cult classics. And more so than anything else we did since. So, and after we did that, Paul was really into the migrations of people and studying more concerning the Arctic region, Antarctica, et cetera, et cetera. And he got more into the Mystery Cave of Many Faces book. And then he came in and he said, I want to see everything that you have that says Burrows Cave is just bogus. I want to see it. Well, I had America BC.
That's Barry Fell's book.
Yeah. And
now Barry Fell is a diffusionist, right? And he's one of them that has kind of come out and not been, he doesn't think this is real.
No,
correct?
He believes it's all the artifacts are fake because he faked an artifact. And I'm working on a video for that. I got one, the Lucanian ox, which we can discuss further. But I gave Paul the thing there, and then I didn't see him for a week or so. He had he was using my scooter to get around, and he would have a backpack full of chessboards or books and such. And he came over. He said, "I've figured out who's buried in the Burrows Cave. I said, who's that? He said, Alexander the Great, Cleopatra, and the entire Ptolemaic Dynasty. And my heart skipped a couple of beats. And
Now, at that point, you had to, was there any part of you that said there's just no way?
Well, no, because Paul had an IQ of 190. And, I mean, the guy was a genius. And he knew 8 spoken languages. He knew several ancient alphabets. And he was the perfect guy to decipher all this stuff. And I only know 10 ancient alphabets. And
oh, you're slacking.
Yeah, I know. And my IQ's, a couple of points behind his. So he told me, he said, I need you to prove me wrong. And I said, well, man, that's a pretty big task, to prove him wrong on anything. And so I went, and I had already had several classics and started getting them out and reading and, figuring out what was going on. And sure enough, Alexander Helios was missing from history and just falls off the planet. And here he shows up at age 22 as an old man, as a warrior, as a handsome fellow, all this kind of stuff. And that's what all of the deciphering that he did. And all we had was the 2 books.
Now, were you working with Russell at this point? And
well,
like doing
kind of.
excavations?
We had called him up. We wanted more pictures, and he did send us some more some more pictures that were not in the books. Some black and whites and some color photos, which I think I may still have some of them around. I gave Wayne May a bunch, and but he's not.
Well, I've got Wayne May's name written down to ask you later on. But.
But anyway, that was what it was, and everything we came up with just came up with more and more and more of the same issue.
Were you doing excavations with Russell? Were you?
No.
Did he take you to the caves?
No.
He didn't.
No, he just was bull crap. He was just making up more stories. Okay, when I showed him Tomb Tape 3, the first rendition. And it came up, Alexander the Great, King Alexander of Pella. It wasn't called Alexander the Great back there. He was Arxantris, Alexander Magnus. He wasn't the Great. And that was the American scholars. They wanted to see the Great on the inscriptions. And they said, oh, it can't be Alexander because it doesn't say the Great. So anyway, I left Burrows with 2. He just freaked out. Oh, my God, what have I done? What have I done? He was just, I know that, shouldn't he be happy? He should be happy. He found Alexander. Why isn't he happy? And he was just freaking out, sweating bullets and just pacing the floor. Oh my God. Burrows, you can't go by what he says. You got to go by how he reacts and what he does.
Okay.
And then I said, well, now you need to stop selling these stones to people. Well, then he covered the bed in my motel room. He covered the bed with artifacts.
And up to that point, how many had he excavated out of this?
It's ambiguous. 4,000. It's safe to say 4,000.
Okay. And he had sold many of these.
Oh yeah. Hands down. Yeah.
So his reaction was he was upset at the fact that he let a lot of these go for probably lesser than
He was selling marble artifacts for, a bust of Julius Caesar for $20.
Okay.
He was selling tall marble statues for like $30, $3. It was artifacts were just, discount prices. And
okay.
I covered some of that in my books, which will be available later. And
we'll do that before we we'll let everybody have like your YouTube and all of that. Yeah. But
so anyway, I left him with 2 tapes, one for him and one for the landowner, because we thought it was important that the landowner know who this was. And so what he did was he sent the other tape. He kept one tape and made copies and sent them out to a lot of people. And he sent the other tape to Cyclone Covey. Dr. Covey.
The Wake Forest.
He was conceived in a tornado.
Yeah. And
honey, there's a tornado coming. I can't pull out now. What do you think?
Now, but explain to the listeners who he is.
He was a wacko professor of ancient history out of Wake Forest University.
And he believed these artifacts to be legitimate.
He believed he'd been following several different decipherments through the ages that we had just become privy to, and mainly between Phoenician and Etruscan. And so, but after that, Burrows had told me that there was going to be a Burrows Cave committee meeting at Cahokia, and over here in St. Louis, near St. Louis, Collinsville. And if I could come there and show the tape and give an explanation of what he found, fine. And when I was there, Burrows was like, "There's been a breach of security." Everybody's got their Burrows Cave voice. Mine is this. "There's been a breach of security." And it was because Rick Flavin had written a bad article about him.
Okay, I'm not.
And, it was just absolute horse crap.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody there had ever spoken to or knew the landowner. And we're like, "What? You guys have been following this for years, and nobody bothered to?" What
think that would be step one?
Yeah. You just relied on Burrows for everything, and the guy's got a low IQ. He couldn't have. And Jim Shears, he told me, he said, well, he had emailed him a couple of times. And that was back when email was just getting. You had Prodigy, AOL, and how many people remember CompuServe? So
right.
We're talking ancient history. I mean, in a real sense. So anyway, that was how it was, and then we had told Burrows, we want to see we have to meet the landowner. We have to meet the landowner, and Burrows would say this and that, and he was going to send a Chinook helicopter to pick me and Paul up in Florida and fly us over to some casino near Tampa, and just one wild whopper yarn after another. And whenever Paul was talking to Burrows, he would use his baby voice. "We know that you haven't been honest with us. You've been a bad boy, and we now know, we know that you're not being truthful."
But at that point, does that make you question the validity of any of the artifacts?
Oh no, he couldn't. No, he couldn't.
And why?
Because of the scripting on it, the alphabetical characters, and the artisan. We knew that Burrows couldn't. Some of them were left-handed, right-handed, and he could not have made it up. And but he did make up everything else. He made up the landowner, and I have in my on an SD card the letters of George Neff, the alleged, and then he later came on to another fictitious character called Benito Costello, was the attorney for George Neff. And
he doesn't exist?
No.
And what was the point to make this up?
Because Burrows didn't want anybody intruding into his repertoire.
Now he has claimed that he has told different people that the caves were in different areas.
Yeah.
Now you have made your own excavations of these sites.
Yeah.
And how do you know you're in the right place?
Well, for one, the treasure books that he used. And the same people that took him down, the
landowners
they all concurred with what actually happened. And I would suggest anybody that's interested in to see actually what happened, it's Artifact Gallery 12 Part 2, which is more recent.
That's on YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so, and then later on, in 97 and 2000, I did my own subsurface testing with earth resistivity, and I've got all the records here of everything that we did.
And what did that show?
That there's a room underneath one ravine, and there's a cavern system underneath the other ravine, or the bluffs. And so, but I spent several $100,000 to determine where it was, and now all we're just doing is trying to find somebody that's got a couple of $1 million to buy the property, and we can move this forward. I can't say anything about the current landowner. He knew what he was buying. He's been a thorn ever since for no reason. I mean, his family will be looked at like just as bad as Burrows. I mean. And he was on the History Channel. I had like 15 minutes. The one guy and girl, they had 30 minutes. And then the guy after me had like 20 minutes. I had like 10 minutes. I didn't have very much. And they just did a hatchet job on me. And so pretty much that's what a lot of people do is I've had people come here and pretend to be a friend of mine, whatever, and then go home and post a bunch of crap about me. I was reading one time on a forum about this guy, Harry Hubbard, and as I was reading it, it's like, man, they're talking about me. I envisioned this guy 6'4", 260 pounds with a big beard. You know, I mean, this Harry Hubbard, he's a rough character. And people that had never met me before. Sure. And that was, you know, pretty much before the YouTube. Our videos have been available since the mid-late 90s, which we sold a bunch on our webpage went up on Memorial Day of 97, and we started selling. I had an 800 number, and that was another thing that Burrows did. He gave everybody my 800 number, and everybody started calling, and some people would just, some of the people that knew him would just call and just breathe in the phone, not know what to say, and you know, I would hang up, and they'd call back. And just a lot of unsavory,
a lot of harassment.
Yeah. And anything Burrows could do to harass me, is what he did. He called the cops on me several times. He sent a goon squad down. He had me kicked out of 1 or 2 motels, just by claim. He'd go in, flash a fake badge, and pretend he was a police officer, and say that Harry Hubbard was a gun runner and he's running drugs. He's from Florida. And you need to kick him out. And they, and they would believe he would sound real convincing, you know. And so anyway, and now when he does interviews, he can't remember anything. He can't remember what artifacts. He can't remember this. But he can remember that Harry Hubbard now. That damn Harry Hubbard.
Well, not, I guess, devil's advocate a little bit, but he is like 90 years old and he has had a stroke.
No, he says that. I mean.
Oh, you don't think he's even had a stroke?
He's had so many heart attacks through the years. I mean, he had a heart attack. Never go, oh man, Burrows had a heart attack. Here, Burrows well, his wife worked at Richmond Memorial Hospital. And I would call up, do you have a patient on record, Russell Burrows, that's had a heart attack? No. And he never had any heart attacks, and I don't know that he had a stroke or not. I mean, he just lies.
What happened? Why did you moved here based off of his findings? What caused the conflict between you two?
It was right off the bat because he did number one, he did everything he could. He pulled guns on me and my party out there in the woods.
That's this story.
And he lied. He had the cops on me all the time. The sheriffs. He would have the sheriff's department call me all the time. He would call up my 800 number, and whoever answered the phone, he'd just cuss them out. We didn't know these people from Adam's house,
right.
Cat, and just cuss them out. My secretary or my office manager, Rebecca, George, or Jim, or Ron, whoever answered the phone, he'd just cuss them out, and call them. And he even harassed one of my coworkers, George. He told me, his wife works out at NASA, and she's a liaison for Bill Nelson. And she works on several projects. Well, then he called up the Space Center, NASA, and just said a bunch of shit about her, and tried to get her in trouble. And then the supervisors were calling George and me saying, "Who is this guy?"
And what was the purpose of that? Why would he do
harassment?
Just to get back at you?
Yeah, and Paul.
Yeah, and Paul. And what was he upset with you guys about?
Sell it. Okay, number one, coming in infringing on his property over here.
Right, yeah.
And which is all written in the book. He knew his way around those woods like the back of his hand.
Right.
I mean, and he goes, "No, you're 10 miles off. You're 10 miles off." Well, how come I was parked on this road right over here, and he knew exactly where to go? But that's all in. You have to follow 12 part 2.
The people before him, because this cave was actually first written about in 1925. Is that correct?
It was first discovered in 25.
Okay. So the locals knew about it, I'm presuming.
Yes. Yeah, they were local, and they didn't know about the cave. They just knew about the pit. The pit that and all that garbage that Russell said that he stepped in. It was a tipping stone and this and that. It was just yarns. And then how he claimed that he shot one of them. He killed some of them. He was a Israeli that had Uzis. And
well, I have read that he says the Mossad was after him at one point, and that he claimed. Well, somebody asked, I saw an interview where they said, what about the gunfight you had with the Mossad? And he said, well, that's a lie. That never happened. He said, but they were following me.
Yeah. Well, see, what happened was I believe that there was a person who had a reloading shop, a gun dealer that lived close to there, and one of the Donahos. And I think Burrows just heard him shooting, stuff. Oh, man, I can make a story up about that, And so beyond that, it was just mayhem. And then after I moved up here, and me and Paul first rented a place on Malachi Road, and then I had this thing with Burrows, and he told me, his lawyer wanted, he said that he could talk to my lawyer, and that my lawyer would talk to him. And I said, oh man, this is a golden opportunity. So as soon as that lawyer's secretary picked up the phone, I called her a GD bitchin' whore. I called her every name in the book. I screamed and hollered at her and just called her and just I hope brought her to tears, because that's what Burrows had been doing to my employees for a year and a half, 2 years. And so I said,
turnabout is fair play. Yeah.
Okay. And I loved it. I loved cussing that bitch out. and I never met her, never have met her, never
be a wonderful person.
Probably, good Christian girl. Who knows? Okay. But I just jumped on that, and I felt so good. I said, man, I got a good monkey off my back. I just been wanting to do that for years. And that was when it was just like every other night, at the dinner table, I set the phone on speakerphone, and Burrows would just cuss us out while we were eating, I'd have friends over, and one person said, man, this is better than any kind of reality TV. This is gold here.
Let me ask you, how many artifacts would you say you yourself recovered from?
I haven't recovered anything. I've just seen collections.
So you personally have never pulled anything out?
There was one artifact that somebody with me, actually two, that were found in one of the grottos, and I believe that Burrows salted them there, because he, in a letter to the landowner or Jack Ward or somebody, he said that he had salted a couple of artifacts so that Virginia Horrigan would know what it felt like to find an artifact.
And who's that?
That was a photographer from New York City that had photographed a lot of the artifacts. She photographed 2 collections.
So, in your opinion, Burrows basically got all of the artifacts out of the what I'm going to call a cave, the rock overhangs, but yet there are still burial chambers there that you use. It wasn't ground penetrating radar, but it was
ground penetrating radar doesn't even work here. It's just because there's so much iron in the soil, it just comes up interference. Distorted.
So what did you use?
Ground penetration earth resistivity.
Okay, so you used earth resistivity,
right? And
I know you've done some of your videos show this.
Yeah,
and it shows that there's a series of, or a cavern, and then okay, all right. So you believe there are more there?
I don't know. I just know where we have. It's too expensive to go everywhere. But whenever somebody assisted with the cost, I would do them a line wherever they wanted one done.
Does it bother you at all that mainstream archaeology doesn't put any validity into this at all?
Well, they don't know very much about it. Joe Wilson, who's an archaeologist, whatever, he put out all this information, and he starts at like 97, 98. Nothing having to go back to the 50s, to the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and they just make it up as they go, or they use third, fourth-hand information. There was a woman that wrote an entire article or a booklet about me and used just trash on the internet for her information. Never bothered to call. And she was in Salem. She could have emailed me. My email is everywhere. My webpage was still up by then, and no regard for contacting Harry Hubbard, just taking everything as hearsay.
Sure.
And
I do know I saw something online condemning you because you would put HH at the end of something, and they said that was a reference to neo-Nazi Heil Hitler, and I thought, well, those are his initials. And I thought that was pretty incorrect to come after a guy when he's obviously using his initials.
Well, and then she said, she even said that Heinrich, I had been interviewed, and I guess 2010, 2009 or something, by Heinrich of Red Ice Radio. And he was laughing at, like, talking about Burrows, you know. And then she wrote that even Heinrich was laughing at Harry Hubbard. No, he wasn't. He was laughing with me.
Right, yeah.
And so, and I just get a kick out of all the people that don't know what happened and people that don't know what Burrows was doing or anything about ancient languages or history. They're just going off, making it up as they go.
Do you believe he faked any of the artifacts?
Oh my gosh, yeah. He didn't fake them. He did worse. He would take a legitimate artifact and then inscribe letters. And once he watched our Tomb Tape 4, and in subsequent videos from the Isaac Convention, he knew he could scratch letters at the beginning and the end, or put a Helios on it, or Men of Tyre would, and get a higher price. So he was scratching characters, and for somebody that couldn't see.
So you believe he was taking legitimate artifacts
and adding to them, tainting them, creating problems. And I point that out in several of my videos. Okay, this art of the man in the thing is good, but the insignia at the top is fake. That's been faked. And that's what he would do. He would fake the mystic symbol. He would fake Helios. And there was this one guy that purchased, I think, 17 stones from Burrows, or 19 stones, lived in Evergreen, Colorado. And every stone he actually had a couple of elephant tablets. And every one he had Burrows had added characters to the front and back. And he said that this is all fake. This is all fake because he couldn't decipher him. And he said he knew 56 languages, and his remedial English sucked. I mean, he was not good at English. I mean, how can you be good at anything else if you can't spell in English?
A lot of these artifacts have elephants. They have cobras. They have animals and depictions of boats that certainly look Phoenician, that go back to the old world, without a doubt.
There are actually stones that had extinct animals on them, and those were jewels. I had one burn up. It was a Masiosaur. It was a dinosaur with a real long tail and a real long neck that had two big fins on the front, no fins on the back. Just beautiful, remarkable. I, got pictures of it around here. I even got the pieces of where it burned up, and had the African ibex on it. And when it comes to the elephant stone, I've done one video on it, the Lucanian ox, and I've got several more. I'm doing another video. It's going to be Addendum Part 6, Lucanian Ox Part 2. That's how I'm having to do all this so I can keep it straight myself. So, and on the elephant stone, excuse me, all the experts were looking for the word elephant or some kind of Greek word or Latin word for elephantine. But what it was is Shafranka, with his knowledge of ancient history, he came up with Lucanian ox, because when Pyrrhus of Epirus, king of the Molossians, went into Italy, he brought with him Punic elephants, which is a smaller elephant, not much larger than a horse. Easier to get on a ship, more temperate, more agile, a little bit faster. And that was the first time the Italians had ever seen an elephant, especially on their soil. And so Shafranka, Paul found Lucanian ox. And that's what made everything work.
One thing that a lot of the mainstream archaeologists have an issue with is the fact that these stone tablets, they mix cultures, Phoenician, Egyptian, Greek. Mm-hmm. I've seen your argument is that this is basically a Mediterranean.
Right, Mediterranean
culture. Because all of the cultures represented are around the Mediterranean, mm-hmm. and that this kind of predates they all kind of broke off and just started doing their own things then. Is that
Um,
somewhat maybe?
I'm of the opinion, which I've had several, oh God, maybe 2 or 3 dozen tablets sent into forensics, and they all pass forensics. Like, because in forensics with artifacts, you got to get over the 500-year time warp, and once you get over 500 years ago, it's game over. And I'm as I was first videotaping Photo Show 2, I believe it was, or Photo Show 1. I had we were getting kicked out of the hotel, me and Virginia Horrigan, because of Burrows. And he was pissed off that Virginia Horrigan, and I had flown her in from New York to St. Louis because she had been there to the site. And
she was a photographer, reporter.
Yeah. And interested enthusiast, diffusionist. And when Burrows took her to the site, he took her 1.5 miles through the woods to scramble. But there's that dadgum power line that runs right through it. And that's the same power line right here, as a matter of fact.
Right.
So he was real ticked off about that. But she was there, yeah. And I put together with her pictures that we were at the right spot. And every one of the pictures Burrows had on the back of it, private by landowner, do not publish. I've even got them still around here somewhere. And so there were so many things that were telltale that we were at the right spot, that it wasn't in Kentucky, it wasn't in Hardin County, it wasn't in Richland County. And that was a lot of it was just Wayne May adding confusion and chaos. That's all he has done for over 30 years.
Okay. One thing that I found interesting was that when the Mormon Church began to get interested in this, because it backs up some of their beliefs, that in the early to mid 90s, that's when these Christ stones start to appear.
Late 90s.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you mind getting into, because that seems to me that sends up warning signals to me.
There were none of the Michigan Soper plate tablets before like 1997, 96-ish. And the fakes and the taints really accelerated after summer of 1995. During spring of 95 is when we did our presentation at the Isaac, did several more decipherments, and Joe Mahan played part of Tomb Tape 3.
Was there any Jesus stones at that point?
No.
Do you believe and I'll describe this for the listeners, that these stones came about and they show obvious depictions to Christ. They show what it looks like, maybe some of them
on the cross,
and Jesus, like a figure in a robe walking on water, and then there's obvious Native American dress there,
copying Soper plates,
right? And you believe that
was all tainted and fake. And
who do you think did that?
Probably Burrows, or one of the people in his Civil War Inactivators Club. He was a reenactivator, Civil War.
Okay.
General Burrows. And it was either his brother-in-law, his wife had to be writing the George Neff letters. And because it's obviously a feminine handwriting. And
you say George Neff is not a real person.
No, there was a Neff Lake in I think Richland County or Wayne County somewhere, and I think that's where he got Neff Lake.
This story is so incredible. I'm trying to wrap. This goes off in so many directions, and I'll give you one that blows me away. There's a famous scene in the movie The Blues Brothers when these Nazis are marching, and one of the Blues Brothers looks at the other one and he goes, "Who's that?" And he says, "Those are Illinois Nazis." And he says, "I hate Illinois Nazis." Well, the guy, and that was based off of a real life event, and
Skokie 7,
right, where the ACLU defended the Nazis' right of freedom of speech. It's what it was famously known for. But the man that organized that in real life, his name was Frank Collin, who did time at the Pontiac Correctional Center when Russell was an officer there, and he, upon getting out, this Frank Collin wrote numerous articles and books about the Burrows Cave.
A little bit later on, yeah.
Yeah, so there's obviously he had to have heard that from Russell while he was working there.
No, there was
No.
there was a lot of unrest at that at Pontiac Correction Institution. at
Well,
that
I
time.
have friends that work there.
Yeah, and Burrows didn't work there very long, but he was there at the same time. But there's no evidence whatsoever. And Frank Joseph says that he never met Russ Burrows in person until like 1998.
And Frank Joseph is also Frank Collin. It's
He
the
changed
same.
his name to Frank Joseph.
Right. And he was a leader of the neo-Nazis, but then I've
Mhm.
read that he
Mhm.
was actually part Jewish himself. His father says they're Jewish. I read that online.
He looks Jewish.
I don't know if that's true.
I wouldn't know either.
But that's just
it would make
crazy.
sense. I mean, now that we learn that the SPLC funds all these guys,
Sure.
I'm sure ALC does, ACLU does, ACLU.
But just the fact that the Blues Brothers make a comment about a guy and it's set up an event and it's tied to this silly cave. It's just, this thing goes in so many directions.
I know,
It's just absolutely. Is there ever a part of you, Harry, that you think, man, life would have been easier if I wouldn't have gotten involved in this?
Oh yeah, I would have much rather read the whole story from my easy chair. I would probably have I had a condo and a ranch house in Florida. Had a condo on the beach and on the ocean in Cocoa Beach. Had a ranch house in Palm Bay. I had a big business in Melbourne. I had another.
You had a tech business in
yeah.
the 80s that you worked with. What was the name? You worked with Cape Canaveral. And
I worked with ETI, Electronics Incorporated.
What was the name of your company?
My Cybertech Systems.
Okay, yeah.
I had Coastal Chlorination. I had Lazeria, which was my music company. And because I installed PAs, and it was nightclubs on the ocean are a cash cow when it comes to amplifiers and electronic gear, because the salt in the air just disintegrates them. And so I had several different things going. At the biggest I had 15 employees in 4 states.
I want to come back to the Russell faking some of these, because I saw a video where he said he's never faked one, and they said, does anybody that you know did? And he goes, yeah. And he had some choice words for you, and he said Harry Hubbard.
Oh
yeah. And but you've never faked it.
No,
you've never made.
No.
Okay, right.
As a matter of fact, there's one that's a half taint somewhere on these shelves here. I'll find it if I can and show it to you. But there was one that was in the books. That was obvious. It was a tombstone from it had father or brother on the back of it.
I saw that. Scott Walter was discussing.
Scott Walter, and so they're all fake. No, they're all fake because they had one. Oh yeah, that was 2 inches, and it was this and that. Well, that was the one. And then when Joe, what's his name? I can't remember what his name is. I just brain flatulence. Joseph, the guy that just did some stuff, Gibson, whatever. He goes, yeah, just remember what Scott Walter said, and he says, yeah, about the fakes. He said that he'd seen. I said, how many marble pieces did you see that were fake? Well, there was only 1 or 2, and because Scott Walter, he didn't have very many marble pieces, and he had one that was a fake. And then Burrows said, "Oh, I never saw that stone before. I never saw it. But it was obvious. It was in Jim Shears's book. It was that damn Harry Hubbard must have carved it up and you faked it."
Right. How do you estimate? Because here we are. We're in Marion County, Illinois. How do you reckon they got here?
Oh, you need to see my Mapstones video.
I have, but I want you to describe to the listeners.
They obviously came up through the Gulf of America, and then went up to the American River, Mississippi. I wish we would change the name of that, because it starts in Minnesota. Why do we call it Mississippi?
Right. And Illinois has the longest border of it than any state. Yeah.
And
they cut right. Basically, they went east through the Ohio.
Yeah. And then up the Wabash, and then up the Little Wabash, then the Skillet Fork, and then Lick Branch.
Okay, now I got to stop you here. the kind of armada that you're talking and the kind of ships that it would take to bring these sarcophagi, all of the, how could they make it up these small
just easy.
creeks?
In the springtime when it floods, the Ohio gets to be, maybe 2 miles wide.
Well, the Ohio I don't have a problem with.
Well,
I don't
the
have a
Wabash-
problem with the Wabash.
Little Wabash is 2 or 3 miles wide right now due to the rain that you guys got last week. And then the Skillet Fork also, right here. This field right here floods up.
So you think that
Oh, yeah,
creek gets big enough to have these?
And a lot of old timers say that the Skillet Fork was larger back then. They built a drainage ditch in Wayne County to kind of help control the flooding or the depth of the Skillet Fork. Because now Wayne County has got huge mounds all through it. I mean, there's one township's called Big Mound, and the mound is 1.5 miles long and 3/4 of a mile wide, completely man-made. There's a mound so large.
Now, are we talking the mound builders again? The mound builders
or whoever,
Cahokia, or So now, do you relate it to these people?
Possibly, yeah,
Okay.
quite possibly. I mean, who else could have done it? How many people did it take to build all these mounds? I mean, just think of the millions and millions of labor hours. But there's a mound. They called it Fletcher Ridge. It was a mound so big that it had 5 huge mounds on top of the mound. So I mean, that's not Native American, So I mean, just think of the logistics involved with building a mound. And they say, they put the dirt into a basket with what, a shovel, and then put 60 pounds of dirt in a woven reed basket and see how long it lasts. I just throw that out the window. I mean, they had to have skins and this and that. And there's like the Emerald Mound over here in, I think, St. Clair County. You can see the borrow pit right next to it. And it's a temple mound. It just goes straight up. It's absolutely amazing. It's all grown over now, but it's a nice mound. It's considered with the Cahokia group because it's like 10, 12 miles, and there was a boardwalk that went from that Emerald Mound straight to Cahokia. There's several huge boulevards in Indiana and here that they just plow it over just whenever. I mean, but I can't blame farmers for wanting to grow their crops.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the artifacts now,
Okay.
back to the stones themselves. What were they made of? And is that the material that they were carved out of or carved into? Is that local material?
No. And that's what gets me is the famed forensic geologist, which there is no such thing as a forensic geologist. Okay, Scott Walter made that up. And surprisingly, he knows very little about minerals. I mean, very little. And he said that, he found the same stone south of Olney on Fox Creek. And Wayne May spread that. Well, it's just a black slate. It's not curved over. It doesn't have fossils embedded in it. A lot of these stones have fossils embedded in them, and they're brachiopods, and they're not native to Illinois or North America.
So you believe they brought these stones with them?
Oh, yeah.
Did they carve them there, do you think, or did they on the way over?
It's obvious the ones that has got rattlesnakes on them were carved here. There's a bunch of them with rattlesnakes, and then there's a bunch of them that's got other, native Amerindian-looking people.
Why they were using parchments at this time? So if they were trying to document possibly coming over, why would they load up a lot of heavy stones?
Ballast in the boats or whatever. There's several of the stones have a chalcopyrite strips in them, which is not native to here, and which is quite cool actually. And but now the marble, all the marble pieces are Carrara marble. They're not native to here. There's another white stone. There's a diorite. And even the black stone there's a deposit of them in Egypt, and there's also a deposit in Italy. They called it Lavagna, and that's what the Romans used to use for chalkboard or blackboard. That's what Lavagna means, is blackboard. And that was another one too, is that the embedded fossils. A lot of times the fossil would be used as part of the picture. But they would just work that
and
in.
You're saying these are fossils that are only found in the old world. They're not in the new world. Do you think it's possible that this could be related to the Olmec culture of central and southern?
That would be speculative. I don't have an opinion on that. I don't know.
Of all the artifacts that you've seen,
Hmm.
you got to have some that are your favorite.
Oh yeah,
What's your favorite?
I've got a couple. I like a lot of the naked women. They're beautiful. They've got gorgeous bodies and perky butts and breasts and mammary glands. And then the one of Alexander, Mariamon Septip in Ra, or Xanthus, which means in the living image of the sun god Ra, or Xanthus, which is the Egyptian word for Alexander. That is probably my favorite. And
Where are those?
pardon me?
Do you know where they're at?
Well, some of them were in Joe Mahan's collection, and some of them were in other collections. And Scott Walter had the one of Alexander, and he brought it here, and I got to photograph it. And I don't know if he sold it. He sold all his stones to Papa Pete, and I don't know if he kept that one or not. But they're all authentic or whatever. I mean,
has anyone taken these and had them? I don't think you carbon date stone, but has anybody taken these to any university to have these? They can figure out when these scratches were made.
Mm-hmm.
When
they just
have they done that? Has anybody?
I've had them tested.
You've taken artifacts
to the forensic lab, period, the world over. He's on.
Where's this out of?
Santa Fe. And he's on retainer, the Peabody Museum, New York History of Natural Museum, a couple of museums, the Louvre. He spends a lot of time in China.
What's his name?
His name is Arenda Lab, Frank Aon. He's the one that writes all the reports. And he is by far much better than any university. The universities come to him. And he never had a problem with them. But he just between 1600 and 1800 years before present. Well, that puts us in our time. They can't give you an exact manufacture date, but I believe that a lot of these artifacts were 2,000 years old 2,000 years ago. I believe that there's a bunch of the marble pieces and some of the other pieces, because there's a conglomerate. There's all kinds of black, and there's
so you think possibly 4,000 year old.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. From Babylon and other places. And the way I met Frank Aon is I was at the Tucson Gem Show, and I met several people from Santa Fe that were dealers. And Santa Fe is the Mecca, I hate to use the word Mecca, but the hub of archaeological artifacts. You can buy anything, buy a Roman pillar, you can buy a bust of Cicero, you can anything that you can buy from the ancient world, you can pick it up on Skid Row of Santa Fe. And I had met a friend in New Mexico. I met a bunch of people at the Tucson Gem Show that I went, my first and second one. And he had some Peruvian pottery, and I was going to peddle it in Santa Fe. And so I went and took the business card, and the first guy I went to, he was a real nice guy, had a real nice gallery and sold pottery. He said, yeah, you got some nice stuff. You got some nice polychrome pieces. But he said, in this town, you're not going to move anywhere with any dealer unless you get certification from Frank Aon. You're not going to, it ain't going to happen. You're throwing darts blind.
So that's why you used him. You knew that this guy is.
Yeah. The professionals used him. So.
Right. I'm going to go back to the skeptic side, that a lot of people have brought up the fact that in the summer of 1981, Raiders of the Lost Ark came out. That was the big hit. In April of the following year, that's when Russell Burrows falls into this pit with all these magical. Does that bother you at all?
No, not at all. And he didn't fall into a pit. He had to climb in, and we're not sure exactly how he ingress and egress, but yeah. But it, like I say, it was there, and now there's been so much just in the last few years that's come in about it. It never stops. And then with my new friend Z. he asked questions that nobody else asks that caused me to have to go and do work. And a lot of this that you see is because I had to get my books out of my storage.
Well,
all these books that came from Florida and Georgia were all in totes. And
your library is amazing, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. This is an incredible
from the floor to the ceiling.
Yeah, and it's in a lot of old. You have some books that are how old?
Over 300 years.
Yeah, you are obviously a very well read man. There, and anybody that questions that, I would.
I've got plenty of videos online that they can argue with.
Right.
And I use those 300-year-old books in searching for Quetzalcoatl. And they are fascinating. I mean, they really are fascinating.
Wayne May's name has came up a couple times, and I've watched several of these different videos, and it seems that there's an argument, and I can't remember. You'll have to forgive me. I've watched so much stuff, and I'm trying to learn and remember. I think it was Russell himself said that Wayne May is looking in the wrong spot. Do you know, is he looking in a different spot?
He's looked in several spots. And that was what when I introduced him to Z caught him in 4 lies back to back. I've always tried to, be nice to Wayne May. I've sold him books, and I have never really called him up, even though he's looked at me dead in the eye and lied to me several times through the years.
And is he the editor of Ancient America?
Yeah, it's his magazine.
Okay.
And he lied so many times that there's about 10 years until, 24, 23, summer of 23, when he came here and bought some books, that I just gave up on him. I just didn't want to have anything to do with him because, and I asked him, I said, why didn't you reprint Russell Burrows' Mystery Cave book and republish it? He goes, oh man, there's just too much bullcrap in there. So, I never bothered you before. His magazine is a rag. I mean, there's some decent articles in there. Rick Osman writes some good stuff, and then he has some reprint stuff from the 1800s, which is really good. But other than that, when he's talking about Burrows Cave, these people just have no clue. And now there's like 6 people now writing books about Burrows Cave, and they've never seen my videos. They've never read my books. They've never been here. And, so what are they writing about?
Yeah, right. Well,
they're just taking Burrows' word for everything.
How many times have you, because there are people that argue that the caves, there aren't even caves in this part of Illinois.
Correct.
And the caves don't exist. Well, if using a layman's term, I understand there's probably from a geologist's point of view, this is the definition of a cave. But if the 3 of us are out walking in a creek and I look and there is a rock overhang that goes back 30, 40, 50 feet, however long, and I can get up in there, build a fire, take shelter, I'm going to call that a cave. Now, I know that might be not the actual definition, but there are people that say there's not even caves.
There are no caves here. This is a man-made cavern.
Okay. And I've watched several of your videos that you have. You're obviously, unless you're in another state, these caves are here. They're real.
Well, these are caverns. Caverns. They're hand-carved
grottos,
caverns.
whatever they want to call them. But now, how many times have you been in those caves? Would you guess?
I haven't been in the caves at all, in the cavern. But no, there's grottos all over the place here.
And how many times have you been down through any of those?
Dozens. I mean, I made a video, 3 ancient sites in Roman Township, where I show several grottos.
And, okay, when was the last time you were in one of those, would you say?
2021-ish.
Okay.
The big, I videotaped them. I mean, you can see.
Well, there's somewhere you guys are digging, and like you've got a crew with you. It's at night.
That would have been in 95. Yeah, 95 or early 96. That would have been then. But we just scraped out the stuff. It's obvious that they didn't go back very far. The grottos and the rock shelters, they're pretty shallow. They're pretty shallow. I mean, you can camp out at. I mean, I weathered out a couple of storms here and there in them. So,
well, what is there anything else you want to talk about? And when it comes to this whole,
Well, yeah, Wayne May, being the zealot that he is, I mean, and just lie after lie, he has done nothing but create chaos and confusion. The more chaos, because he doesn't want anybody to find or get in Burrows Cave, because then he knows he's out of it. He's out of it, Harry. You're out of it. You're out of it, Harry. And he won't have anything to leverage with, because he gets a lot of money pretending that he's doing digs in Richland County, hunting Burrows Cave. Oh yeah, there was something there, and there's just so much crap, and he could have done a lot more years and years ago, but instead create the chaos, and then you can keep running with it.
I have one more question for you. Southern Illinois is known as Little Egypt, and I've read, and there's various historical. I've read several different stories, so it seems to me there's some confusion as to why this part of the country became known as Little Egypt, and there's a lot of towns down here that have Greek and Egyptian names, Sparta and Cairo. There's just a bunch of
Pyramid
them.
Lake.
Do you think that somebody way back when they started naming stuff in the 1800s, when the settlers came in, do you think it's possible that they could have been finding artifacts or examples
some Amish or Mennonite kid came home with some Egyptian amulets or artifacts that appeared to have Egyptian. There was a guy that found an Egyptian medallion, 20, 30 years ago, right down the creek here. And there was another guy that found a real nice baton staff ornament in the creek, not a mile and a half from this tomb, and a huge grotto there, and it had been excavated. I mean, a lot of these grottos have been excavated, and by pot hunters, and some of the holes are like squared off at 3 feet deep. Well, the only reason you dig a hole 3 feet deep is because you found something at 2.5 feet deep, and so. Beyond that, there could have quite possibly, and there's people that still find, all kinds of artifacts. There's artifact collectors here that just have massive, massive collections. And plus there's, people that have Burrows Cave artifacts.
Awesome. Harry, thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate you taking the time and doing this interview. I've enjoyed it. All righty. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're quite welcome. Anytime. And we want to do a follow-up, no problem.
Okay. We might have to do that.